In Vikings, the January 25th edition, Bryant McKinnie was off last week. It was just the crew plus Yannick from Germany. Yannick has gone back to Germany since, but Bryant has returned. Bryant, how was your week? We missed you.
It was pretty good. I had to speak at Cal Lutheran last Wednesday for Let's Chat, and one of my partners here went to that college, and they asked us to come in and discuss being entrepreneurs and the ups and downs about it, and them incorporating an athlete and just all those type of scenarios. So we kind of discussed that.
Ooh, okay. And this was in Los.
How,
Sorry,
sorry. I
go
was just
ahead.
gonna ask, how is Let's Chat doing? What's new with Let's Chat?
We we were doing NFL already, NFL Game Pass. Um, and then now we just got MLS as a client. So now there are clients and may come on the board to do some more with Let's Chat. So Let's Chat, we have, I'm about to read our client list. We have the National Women's Soccer League, we have Junior NBA, we have the Golf Channel, Golf Now, Golf Pass, Tennis Hall of Fame, McDonald's, Zaxby's, Bojangles, Comcast Business, Fandango, Rotten Tomatoes, Movie Clips, and the University of Miami. And we're looking to close deals with Chick-fil-A, Wendy's, Peacock, Xfinity, Universal Theme Parks, Xerox, and French Open.
Holy cow.
Oh,
So it's going pretty good.
that's all within the last year too, right? Or has it been
Yeah.
been okay?
Because we were in the Comcast accelerator, so that kind of helped us a lot because a lot of these companies are owned by Comcast.
Oh,
Yeah.
right. I forgot about that. Well, explain what Let's Chat is, though, for anyone who might not know that's listening
Oh,
to it.
Let's Chat. We do real-time translation over 100 languages as far as SMS. Um, we can do voice. We can do something called deepfake, where you take my image. We've taken my image and had me speak in different languages, and those were things that we learned that were needs while we are in the accelerator program. Because like WWE said, what if we want, or PGA Golf said, what if we want Tiger Woods image and voice, but we want him speaking in different languages? So we were able to create that. So we started creating other tools because of the need too. So we're continuing to grow and continue to like make more products for to satisfy people's needs. We got in the food and beverage because we do the what's it, SRQ, QRS codes, or whatever it is, the coding. So in your device, ours translates based on your device setting and not your IP address. So whatever you set your device for, that's what it'll come up in. So you want to know the origin of the language. So that's the difference too. And then like for the NFL, we do their Game Pass. They use 5 of our languages for our translation, and it's just we're trying to just satisfy everyone's need.
What's especially sweet about that, Brian, is only time I ever hear the term deepfake, it's used in a very scary connotation of how it can be manipulated to sway elections and get the wrong message out. So when I finally hear it in a positive light, it's really cool. It is, because you always hear about the ills of what it could be. You could put it on a politician's face or anybody.
Oh yeah, you can. You take somebody's whole image and have them say things.
Yeah, but it's cool to hear the positive because I've honestly never thought about how it could be used for good. It's always been the nasty
so
stuff.
Like for instance, WWE is like they want to, if they're out of the country and they're somewhere speaking a different language, they want that the wrestler, the entertainer, to be able to deliver the message in that foreign language. So that's how it originally came up.
Oh yeah.
Is it very Godzilla like the old Godzilla movies where or like it doesn't look like the technology
No, it looks
looks a
pretty
lot
natural
better nowadays? Okay.
I'll have to show y'all a video of me. It's me.
Yeah.
I'm the demo.
Yeah, we're
Now,
gonna need
script
that.
from WWE.
Oh yeah, I want you.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah, I want you rattling something off in Italian or something like that. I want to see it.
Yeah, we got to see that.
Brian,
Well,
let me ask you, since you weren't with us, you were doing that last week. We didn't get your take on the Vikings' loss to the Giants. You must have felt like kind of in a twilight zone because that's kind of how games used to go for you guys sometimes with the defense. What did you think?
I knew they were getting some guys back on defense, and I know sometimes it can be hard to beat a team twice after you just play them that fast. So that's just like how when Denver had came to us, 10 years ago, and they had like really like wore the Ravens out, and then like we had to turn back around and play them again, and it was like a different ball game. Things changed, people came back into play and stuff like that too, but it's just kind of hard to kind of sometimes beat the team twice. So I could see that being, a possibility too. And then especially by the team who lost, this is a redemption for them. And plus now this is the playoffs.
Yep. So now we rebuild. We started the offseason pretty much that Sunday night, and trying to rebuild on a 13-win season with a first place schedule won't be an easy task. But one of the stepping stones that we talked about without you, Bryant, is the defensive coordinator. When we talked last time, we weren't sure as to his fate. And about a day after we recorded, Ed Donatel was fired or not retained. And so now they're inside the search for a new head coach, or new defensive coordinator. So Sally, I think the consensus from the group last week was if they were going to let go of Donatel, it was a big, oh, well, now it's come to fruition. So what do you think, Sally?
Well, I told you guys last week that I kind of thought that this was how it was going to go. I didn't know if it was going to be the very next day or not, but I just knew that Kevin O'Connell was going to be much more diplomatic about it than the fan base necessarily wanted him to be. And that is how it ended up happening. So no surprises there, I think, from anyone. It'll be interesting to see where they go from here. I'm sure we're going to get into some of the rumored candidates. I personally, I'm not an elite defensive coordinator mind by any means, but I do suspect and hope that they go much younger there. Someone who just fits in a little bit better with everyone we already have on staff.
On the nature of the firing, our friends over at Purple FTW were upset he just didn't fire him during the press conference. And I don't know if you guys saw that tweet. It was very unusual. He said that Connell didn't have the stones to do it out in the public behind the man's back, which was a little weird.
I am blocked, so I did not see that. So I did not see that. But I think we talked about this last week. I don't understand that perspective, because you can't be on your high horse blaming Mike Zimmer for everything and the toxic culture and not saying hi to people in the hallways and throwing people under the bus during a press conference, and then say that you want Kevin O'Connell to exhibit the exact same kind of behavior. So let's just try to be a little consistent, Purple FTW.
Right. And they want the fireworks of they want O'Connell and Kwesi to answer questions about it when those questions are answered when the decision is made. So when they let them go, what else, again, Kevin O'Connell, Sally, you brought it up last week. It's the knee-jerk reactions doesn't seem like it's part of his thing. He obviously has a lot of respect for Ed Donatel, and I'm sure that comes into it. Why would you do something to then essentially publicly chastise someone who you have respect for? So I actually applaud him for that. It's not like the media is not going to have a chance to ask their questions, as time goes on. When they hire someone new, I guarantee someone's going to ask, what was your thought process in making a change? And he'll have plenty of time to do that. So those knee-jerk reactions from people, whether it's for clickbait or whatnot, it's just, man, people can't let anything just go and let things happen naturally.
And isn't it the way that O'Connell ultimately did it exactly the classy way to do it?
Exactly.
Yeah, you don't want to go and do it on a show, behind a guy's back. I'd rather be fired face to face than just learn about it on CBS.
Right.
I couldn't understand it.
And what difference does it make if he's fired in a press release or if he's fired during the post-game press conference? In the end, it's the same outcome, right? Why do you want to publicly humiliate someone? It's just ridiculous. I just don't like the hypocrisy of, this is our new coaching regime, this is our new culture, and then you want him to behave the exact opposite when I don't know.
It's weird. Bryant, so we have a pretty good football team. The offense clicked for the most part, besides the third quarter. That was always a pain in the ass. Every side of the ball went to sleep in the third quarter. But we're going to have a new defensive coordinator probably within a few days or a week. And then I would guess at least 5 new defensive starters. So I know you didn't play defense, but you were around the league for quite some time. Can a defense, in your estimation, be turned around to respectability in a single season?
Yeah. With a new coordinator, yes, so they have a new scheme. So maybe they'll go back to the 4-3 that we liked or whatever. But with a scheme that everybody's come before, and the defensive coordinator understands, the players, and is able to use them to the best of their ability. I definitely think so.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. I gave an example last week of the Cowboys able to do it from 2020 to 2021, and I was immediately told by the masses, well, that's Micah Parsons, buddy. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure I know Micah Parsons plays for the Cowboys. I'm telling you that it's possible. If you have a good coordinator and some new personnel, there is precedent for it. And you don't need, this doesn't need to be this huge, like long standing rebuild. So
look at the Bengals, for example. The Bengals,
Yeah.
like a couple of years when that year Burrow was hurt, his rookie year, like they were not a very good defense, and they added a couple pieces. Obviously, they got Hendrickson and DJ Reader, but the rest of it was pretty organic growth. Like the rest of the other guys were there, so the fact that it's not the Micah Parsons impact, there's a lot to it.
Yeah. I'm going to start with you, Ron, on these candidates because Sally is a self-professed, not an elite defensive coordinator 9. So that's you by default, buddy. Sean Desai came from a Bears background recently, still with the Seattle Seahawks. And then there is Brian Flores, who was the head coach for 3 years, Miami Dolphins, and was linebackers coach for the Steelers. He's kind of everybody's favorite. Ryan Nielsen was co-defensive coordinator for the Saints. And then Mike Pettin was thrown into the ring today, who would be the one old guy. He's not crazy old, but the incumbent or the in-house candidate. Out of those four, I don't know if you want to power rank them or explain some of them. Give us your thoughts.
Well, I mean, like a lot of people, Flores would be at the top of my list. I would have been a big fan if they brought him as a head coach last year. Now I know there was a lot of turmoil, what happened in Miami, which obviously seemed more on the ownership side than him. Like the fact that he was trying to win games and they didn't want him to. But I watched him, in Miami, essentially not go out there and fight, but he was challenging the other team. Like he was standing up for his players, and it seemed like a lot of players respected that. And then the fact that he went to Pittsburgh and they once again, even though TJ Watt missed a lot of the year, they had a very good defense all throughout the year. So that would lean me to believe that we would stick to a 3-4 with him in the mix. But he also comes from that Patriots mold where they play a lot of multiple fronts and a lot of different looks at it. So I'm a big Flores guy. I think that type of fieriness that you need on the defensive side, I think you can get away with a laid back offensive coach, but you look at those fiery personalities on the defensive side, they usually tend to elevate players and get the most out of those guys. The Desai is intriguing as well because while the Seahawks did not have a very good defense, again, well, they were ranked better than the Vikings, but you look at the development, obviously I was a big Tariq Woolen fan. Every guest we had on, I would ask him about him because again, he's just 6'4" and ran a 4.2. So to me, that's just, I wanted him on the Vikings, but he worked wonders with him and Kobe Bryant on the outside, as well as a young defense, Jordan Brooks taking over for Bobby Wagner. So they had pieces that obviously they made the playoffs. They didn't make, yeah. So that's intriguing, but that would also be on the younger end of the spectrum, which I know we all like. So I can't say I know much about the secondary coach or whatever it is on the Saints. Personally, I don't want anyone to do with I don't want anyone who has anything to do with the Saints because I'm bitter in that regard. But I mean, the dream of Raheem Morris and him having that opportunity to potentially move with Sean McVay in limbo, that would have been nice. But that dream's obviously dead because he'll stay there. But I just want us to get our next D'Amico Ryans, whoever that may be. Or not our next, but the next D'Amico Ryans.
Sally, are you team Flores if you had to pick one, or who do you
Well,
like?
I mean, I don't know a ton about him. I know that I think it was the overwhelming opinion of him getting let go from Miami was that was not a necessarily fair decision or a decision that a lot of people would have made, because I do remember he turned that team around and brought them to didn't they make the playoffs?
They were close. They ended on a 6 or 7 game winning streak.
Yeah,
and just missed.
Yeah, they needed someone to lose there in the last week, and they would have made it in. So, I mean, yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to it. I think he has a great reputation. So, I trust Kevin to hire. I think he obviously learned a lot this year about what kind of coordinator he's going to want to work with on that side of the ball, and what's gonna be successful going forward. I think he's had the best on the job training that you could have. So I trust that he's gonna pick somebody who's the best fit.
Do you think Pettine would be the most underwhelming because he's already associated with the defense? Or not necessarily?
No, I don't think that necessarily matters. I've seen Twitter today seems like they're not very satisfied with that decision, and that they think that it's kind of just a courtesy that he's getting the interview. I don't know what I think about that. I mean, if you're a guy and you're getting an interview at your job and you know it's just a courtesy and you're wasting time, that's not going to build the culture that they claim that they're going for, right? That's a perfect way to build resentment. So I don't think that it's that.
It would be weird if Pettine ends up being the guy and then the defense is all good and we could have went with him like in the middle of the year this year. That's the kind of shit I'll think about all the time.
And with Pettine, keep in mind, he's been a head coach in this league before. So while it was with the toxic Browns in that situation, but he's been around. So that experience itself, he clearly has positioned himself well and had respect around the league. So whether or not, again, certain coaches are good in certain spots, I looked at Brandon Staley in the Chargers, where probably isn't fit to be a head coach, but would he make a good defensive coordinator? Absolutely. And maybe Mike Zimmer has kind of transitioned into that mold as well. But so I wouldn't be disappointed if Pettine was the guy.
Bryant, with Flores in Miami, where you live, there's a couple weird things were going on during his 3-year stint. So they kind of played hot potato between Ryan Fitzpatrick and Tua in, I think, Tua's first or second year. And then they went on the real long win streak with Flores and he got big kudos. But then it came out that perhaps they were trying to tank and he was asked to lose. And then somebody was behind the scenes colluding to get Brady. And it was all kinds of shit and tomfoolery. Did you know if the folks down there, did they like Brian Flores? Like
they did. Everybody was actually surprised because I believe the last game was against the Patriots too, I believe, and they had won. So for him to close out the season winning a game and then having a treat and then him to get fired, it caught everybody off guard. So that was the main thing. And then when you hear news about they were asking him to lose games and stuff, people were questioning. I know some friends who have own suites and they were questioning well, I'm going to come to games. Is this what they're going to do? So it was a lot, and I think people definitely moved on from it though. But it was a big thing for a minute.
I forgot about that. And then didn't he sue the league?
Yeah.
What ended up happening with that?
I think that's still ongoing. That was the thing where, so he's a disciple of the Belichick tree, and I think Dable has ties there. And then Belichick inadvertently text messaged the wrong Brian and said congratulations. And that got Brian Flores thinking, how the hell does Bill Belichick know? So
it was before his interview.
Yeah.
So he was being viewed as the token that people were interviewing because of his status and being a black man, and so that's where he kind of raised.
It was the Rooney rule, right?
The Rooney rule, yeah. And he basically was under the assumption, and which seems validated, that the only reason he was getting interviews from places is because of him being an African American.
Yeah, and it's totally bizarre because if Belichick knows, just the fact that Belichick knows is weird. And then secondarily, if he knows before the final guy is even interviewed, there's again shit and tomfoolery going on. I think that one's still ongoing. I don't think that one's resolved. So Flores is in the mix. Sean Desai is the first Indian American roots. His parents are from India to be a coordinator, and he could coach the Vikings. And then you got a couple ordinary old white dudes that are in there, and Pettine and Nielsen. All right, so I want to ask you guys some quarterback stuff. I think kind
Which
of.
Which Nielsen? Not Todd.
Ryan.
Oh.
Yeah, he's from the Saints.
Oh, okay.
Yep, he's.
Todd Nielsen is somewhere coaching, right?
I'll have to look on that one. I'm not sure.
Is that the ginger beard?
I think he might have. He was used to be with the Vikings.
Hold on. Let's see. Well, we're gonna have to come back to that one because I don't have that handy.
Okay.
But I am going to ask you guys some of the quarterback stuff. So Kirk Cousins is going to be 35 years old. It is undetermined if the team will add an extra extension onto his contract. They usually like to add an extra year so he doesn't go on the naughty final year of his contract, yada, yada. But I think there's kind of a growing consensus that the man is getting old. There's been 5 seasons and no Super Bowl, and you should at least start thinking about the future. And one very interesting aspect, Sally, that will come up soon is that the 49ers, unless they lose like 59-0 this weekend, probably have a case to stick with Brock Purdy as the quarterback, Mr. Irrelevant, in 2023. It might be an injustice to bench the guy after what he's done as an unexpected, unforeseen starter, which means Trey Lance could be got for probably a reasonable price. And he is from Minnesota, and the Vikings have a quarterback who's aging, and you might have these young thinkers in Adolph Mintz and O'Connell who want to do it their way. What would you think of a second rounder or a third rounder or something, 2 of those, whatever, for Trey Lance?
Well, look, I thought they were going to do it their way last year too, and they decided that their way was kind of the same way. So I'm not sure. Why am I getting choked up about this? It's just I don't think that they need to figure this out, right? And I don't think that this year in the draft is probably gonna happen. I know that Ron has talked about, next year would be a much better time for them to pursue a quarterback. They don't have the draft picks this year. The class isn't heavy enough. I think it's going to have a lot to do with where is Trey Lance with his injury, and what are they going to have to give up, because they don't have much draft capital to give up. So I am with you. I know we talked about this last week with not extending Cousins. I'm not being a hater, but it's just, I think they got to figure out the future sooner or later. And in my opinion, the Super Bowl window is not open. It's really weird to say that when a team just finished 13-4. It doesn't sound right in any universe, but I mean, we saw these teams play last weekend. They're not even in the same planet as them, so I would be open to it. It depends a lot on where he's at. And I think isn't San Fran, they need draft picks, don't they? Because they gave up a lot to get him.
Yeah, and
I think they have their
McCaffrey.
first this year, though.
Okay.
Yep, and they between the Trey Lance trade and the McCaffrey trade, they're kind of like the Rams, a little skimpy in the cupboard. On that note, Ron, so you and I are kind of, or have been called, or are Cousins guys, but even we're open to, doing the new thing, because it's 5 years of Vikings football and same shit, where they either,
It's been 70 years of Vikings football, same shit. So.
Well, yeah, it's been 62 years,
60, yeah.
But yeah, with Cousins anyhow, it's been 5, and we've got one really cool playoff win. So I think even you and I are open to ideas like this. But here's the dangerous part, kind of like where Sally was at last year, where kind of hoping for the new guys to get to their guy. But now they've got this dangerous situation where they just won 13 games. So if they want to, they can point to that and say, for the love of God, we just won 13 games. We're not blowing shit up. Where are you at on alluring a Trey Lance to the Vikings for whatever the price may be?
Well, first of all, yes, I'm right there with you in being a Kirk guy, but I think we're also realists in the sense, yes, he is an aging quarterback. He is, going to be, it's weird to say this about someone who's younger than me, but, he's going to be, 35 or so during the next season. So you have to be thinking about your contingency plan post Kirk. And my only thing with Kirk is, when people just say, get rid of him, go figure it out, well, that's fine. I have no ties to him. He's not Patrick Mahomes. I'm never going to say he is, but what's the other option? I don't want to sit through a bottom out 2-4 or 2-15 year of watching shit football. I don't think anyone else does.
I would if I could have a Joe Burrow. If I could have a Joe Burrow, I would do it 3 years in a row.
Oh,
it wouldn't matter, because you're
but
never.
the Joe
gonna
Burrows
get
aren't
past
guaranteed.
This. No, absolutely. I'm not saying that they are.
Yeah. So no, right, and even if you were to look at Trevor Lawrence last year, a lot of people probably were thinking maybe he wasn't the guy. So I get it. You should always be looking. Charchian always says every year draft a quarterback, see what happens. Look at the Niners, Brock Purdy, last pick in the draft. After spending all that draft capital to get Trey Lance, and he may be a system quarterback, but you know what? That's the system for him, and that's all that matters. And if he continues this success, if he goes on and wins the Super Bowl, it's not going to be like Trent Dilfer where they're going to cut him after he wins it. It's that kid has something there with that system around him, and you can work with that. Now with Trey Lance, I know it's a small sample size. I know he hasn't played a lot of football, really, even at NDSU. So like that's a question, but it's also a question that would be a perfect bridge with this team where it is, with Kirk Cousins. Even then after that, like if you look at it, and I know people are saying that the team that has him isn't convinced that he's the guy because they've seen enough. Well, but have they though, or have they just seen that Brock Purdy is looking every bit the part? Like, doesn't necessarily mean that it's a detriment on Trey Lance, and it's just you have a guy now that you can turn to. So, if it would take a third round pick, or even next year, like tap into next year's draft capital, I'm all for it to see what he would do. I did have to look it up to see. I thought maybe that Kwesi was part of that. In that timeline, he wasn't. I know he left that year, but I'm sure that because that trade was made early in the draft process, if I recall. So I was trying to find when he left San Fran to go, like in that 2020 year, because right, wasn't that the draft or no?
2021.
20. Okay, so yeah, it wouldn't have mattered either way.
But he did work there for 6 years. So
right,
if you're of the opinion that Lance will not be on the 49ers, and you're going to not even be a Vikings podcast, if you're making lists, the Vikings realistically, by objective standards, would be near the top of the list because of the Minnesota roots, NDSU. Kwesi used to work with the team. They have a 35-year-old quarterback. So everything lines up if indeed
the
Kwesi
relationships are there for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Him and it's, and now again, I'm not saying it's going to be like, the Danny Ainge in the NBA where that you have the relationships that'll help work a deal. But I'm sure that's again the level of respect we talk about. Shanahan, like especially with his dad, never that whole chain. Like there's always a lot of respect there. So if they view it as Purdy's the guy going forward, they may give Trey Lance, like, again, not saying that they're just going to send him wherever he wants, but they may treat that with a little bit of more delicacy. Like, look, this is the direction we're going with. We're going to, field offers for you, but ultimately we'll let you decide kind of where you want to go to have a chance at revitalizing your career. So, but again, like he's a toolsy guy. Like he's a number 3 pick for a reason. And maybe that's not saying much because Zach Wilson was taken ahead of him. But I mean, he's that perfect developmental guy that we haven't been able to have. So if you can get him for, a day 2 pick, or well, not day 2, day 3 pick, or whatever, is third round's day 2 now,
Day
right?
2.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm all for it because every year take a stab at it.
What's the situation? How much longer is he on his rookie deal? Just out of curiosity.
The 4 years with the 5th year option.
Yeah,
but that would be the other benefit. Yeah, that would be the other benefit.
4?
No, he has 3 more after this.
Yeah, assuming the 5th year option gets picked up.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
It's if they say, which I'm pretty sure they have to, if they say Purdy is our guy, it might be very spooky for them to keep Lance there because Purdy's going to go through a stretch of 2 or 3 games where he looks human or looks like shit.
Right.
And they really want to have Lance sitting there, and then you're going to have a controversy. So it might be in the best interest of the 49ers to pick whoever guy it is and then go get, some sort of Nick Mullins backup, like a true backup, but rather than 2 heir apparents, because you're going to be playing hopscotch between them as soon as one has a little rotten stretch.
The other side of that too is, like, again, looking at contract, I don't know what the last pick in the draft, how many years it is, but that's a dirt cheap contract.
Yeah.
And the way that team is constructed, again, so you avoid these Rams collapses, these kind of teams that kind of hit a wall and have to rebuild, like they can keep that thing together for a while with Purdy under quarterback, with George Kittle, Debo, McCaffrey, like Ayuk's coming up on a deal soon, like, and then that defense, which they rely on, they still got to pay Bosa, Fred Warner, like they got names out there that for their benefit, if Purdy is that guy, they can save money and keep that team competitive year in, year out. So, and then also getting the draft capital so that they don't have a bare cupboard like the Rams do. And again, just completely fall off a cliff.
Brian, we're talking about the. Oh, sorry, Sally, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, last thing I want to say about it is, though, we're saying this, but you also have to consider that everyone thought for sure they were going to deal Garoppolo,
Yeah.
and they didn't.
Right.
Yeah, that's a
So-
very
That I
valid
think
point.
it all boiled down to the money, like that they wanted teams to take, and no one wanted to take on that money, so they were essentially stuck with them.
Brian, we're talking about the Vikings quarterback going to be 35 by the time the season starts, which is usually a tender spot where a player will coast for about 3 or 4 more years playing at his level or start to decline. Now, you, sir, played until age 34, I believe, with the Dolphins. When could you start to feel that your body was different? Was that early 30s or?
About 33.
Yeah.
Yeah, the recovery was just taking too long. Yeah, so by the time I was getting to practice on Wednesday, I was still sore.
Yeah.
And then Thursday, it was better. Friday, you was like back in the game again 2 days later. So
So it was
it was
kind
more
of
the recovery, but it had certain weeks, depending on how physical the game was.
Okay.
Some weeks it wasn't as bad, but then also had a knee injury my last year. So that was I tore meniscus, I didn't know it. So I kept saying something was wrong with my knee. And that was another thing too. So after each game, my knee would be swollen, and then I had to get that treated, and it was just getting like, all right, this is annoying.
So it was
So yeah, I
kind
had
of the
torn
Ravens
meniscus. I didn't know
era.
that until I got to the Dolphins, and then when they checked, I don't know how that happened, but the Ravens were able to trade me to the Dolphins without actually seeing my, I guess,
Physical?
physicals or something. When I got there, they were looking at everything, and they turned around, and looked at me like, "Do you notice you have a torn meniscus?" And I was like, "No," but I knew I had some knee issues, and they're like, "Okay, so what are we going to do?" They said you have an option of you can monitor the knee and just keep doing things to just keep it, so it doesn't get, too inflamed, or you have to have surgery. You'll make it back for the last 2 games. And I'm like, you traded from me. Let's just play and just keep an eye on it. And I just did that. And then after that, I was just like, I don't feel like having surgery no more. And I was over it.
So you
Yeah.
So you could kind of feel the body playing tricks on you during the Baltimore stint?
Yeah. It
Starting
happened basically my last season. That's when it really started
Okay.
happening. And then when the knee kept flaring up, because I was taking these shots for I guess because I had like cartilage missing, so I had my knee scoped twice. They call it Synvis shots, and they basically like lubricated the joints. But after a while, what they don't tell you is after a while your body starts to reject it. So I at this point I was taking them, and my body was rejecting them now. So now it's like making my knee look swollen with fluid, but it's because the body's not absorbing the shot anymore. So that's what it had become. And then it was like you have to have surgery or something.
Okay.
I feel
see.
like that happened to you more than once, because with your ankle injury, didn't you also not know how severe it
I
was?
didn't know until later, way later.
Why
Yeah.
are these people not telling you anything?
Well, my ankle, we never got an X-ray on it, so he just kind of like eyed it and said what it was. They
Oh,
never checked to see for a break. But then later on, when I had to get a physical through the NFL, they checked and were like, "Oh, your ankle was broken." I knew exactly when he said it. Like, first I said, "No, I never broke my ankle," and then when he said, "Yes, you did," and he pressed on the area, and I said, "I remember when I broke my ankle." I just didn't know.
Yeah, that's bulletproof, Bryant, for you.
Trust me, it
felt-
happens a lot.
I felt like, don't they have an X-ray machine like just right there? Or did they not just do
No,
it?
they have to send you to go get an X-ray.
Oh, because like Mahomes, he runs off the field and gets an X-ray. Maybe it's different now, but I just feel like they're
By the time
overly
I said something about my
cautious.
ankle injury, it's like I don't know, we were home or away, and then it's like we get back. So then by the time we get to the facility, it's like yeah, it's like we have to send you somewhere. But it wasn't at the stadium by the time. I mean, it happened during the game, but by the time the adrenaline and everything comes down, and you're like showering and cool down, like wait, my ankle's hurting. And then like, oh, come in tomorrow, we'll check it out. And then it's like they just assess it based on how they feel.
Sally, the last question I want to ask the group tonight, because I know you're going to say it's looking ahead, but I swear to God, free agency will be here before you know it. I wanted to ask you the most emergent or urgent position that the Vikings must address. I think the big talkers are cornerback, wide receiver 2, off-ball linebacker, and maybe something on the defensive line. Those will have to be addressed in free agency or the draft. Which position do you think needs the most help?
Oh, I think cornerback for sure. The secondary, it leaves a lot to be desired. Other than Duke Shelley, we have some holes to fill and some positions to upgrade there. So while those are all needs, and I do feel like we've been saying this for almost as long as I can remember now, that the secondary needs help. That's where I would like them to direct those resources if they can. And from what I'm aware, there should be some guys available that are intriguing. So,
Would you prefer they spend a little bit of the piggy bank on a free agent quarterback, or do something sexy in the draft?
I mean, the draft right now it's just I have no idea what to expect from the draft with them only having 4 picks and how they're going to be able to work that into getting more with all of the holes that they have. I think that they're going to have to look to free agency to fill a lot of those holes in some way.
Okay.
I think
Ron,
it kind of is going to have a lot to do with their overall philosophy, though. What they're going to go into with, are they going to be thinking, hey, we're going to go into a rebuild, or are they going to think, hey, we won the division last year, we just need to plug some holes, get a new defensive scheme, and we're going to be right back in the playoffs? If that's their mindset, then yeah, they have to get free agents.
Ron, we're in this weird spot for cornerbacks where we have a bunch, but I think if you're in the front office or the coaching staff of the Vikings, you have to operate under the pretense that Patrick Peterson's probably going to be decent, not a gangbuster superstar like he was for the first 10 weeks or whatever. I think you probably have to operate on the idea that Duke Shelley was sort of a mirage. I guess maybe he could continue to play like this. Then you got 2 maybes for rookies, and then you have Cameron Damsler, who seems like he was just said, the hell with you in the final 3 games of the season. So it's 5 guys that were like, yeah, I don't know. So with all that, the big lead up to the cornerback, is it cornerback for you, Ron, or something different?
Well, I'm a little more optimistic on the cornerbacks because assuming if they can bring back Peterson, and then like you said, then there's the 4 other guys or so that have a level of talent or expectations, between the rookies, the Caleb Evans, Booth, and then obviously Duke Shelley, I think earned a roster spot. Hopefully Shannon Sullivan's gone, but. So I'm a little more optimistic on that end. And I think schematically, I think that'll help because I don't think they're going to be playing soft shell coverage every single snap. So, but for me, I'll be specific on Daron Payne from Washington. I think whether we stay in a 3-4 or move to a 4-3, I think he's perfect, whether a 3-4 end, and let Harrison Phillips play the true nose tackle, or I don't know if Dalvin Tomlinson will be back or not, but we need depth up front. Our offensive line, while yes, I know Kirk was pressured the most, or like at an alarming rate this year, but between Darrisaw, O'Neal, Bradbury, who knows if he's coming back, but they have pieces up there, but we need to develop from the front, and I think. The interior, we just got ran on too much, especially when it mattered. So that would be the guy I would want. Now he's probably going to be a high price free agent, but we just need to beef up the front of our D line.
So you'd say Payne. So interior defensive line is kind of your go-to,
right? Yeah, however you want to look at it, whether that's the 3 technique on a 3-4 scheme or 4-3, but in you look at the teams that do well and they rotate, or like there's guys that go in and out. Look at the Jets, for example. The Jets had, Quinnen Williams, who's an absolute stud, but he didn't play. I think he played like 60% of their snaps. So you get, even if you have elite level players, if you limit those numbers or those stats or snaps, they're going to be more effective later in the game. So I just want a bunch of those guys.
Amen. All right, Bryant, let me ask you this, just for the global NFL part of it. Who do you like this weekend, Bryant, between Eagles, 49ers, and then Chiefs and Bengals?
I think I like the Chiefs. I feel like before, I don't know, last year I never picked the Bengals. Every week I kept saying the Bengals, they're not going to win. They kept winning. But I feel like this is the Chiefs' form of redemption too. So they get a chance to get at them again and make it. I heard some people saying that the 49ers will upset the Eagles. Um, but the Eagles just are at home again, and they got to take that long flight over there to the Eagles. I'm not sure. I feel like the Eagles have been steady this whole season for the most part. So I mean, I can see the Eagles winning.
Yeah, they were damn steady and even better than steady until they went with Minshew for a while because of Hurts's injury. But it's really cool that we have these two like mountainous games. It always seems like on championship weekend, one team kind of sneaks in there that maybe isn't as good as the rest, and it really doesn't feel like that one smidgen at all this time. Let's see, Sally, you got any thoughts on championship Sunday?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that a lot of these games this year in the playoffs there were a lot of blowouts. There were some that weren't very interesting, and I don't remember it being like that in the past. It probably also has a lot to do with I didn't like the majority of the NFC teams, so it wasn't as fun as usual. But I do agree both of these matchups, it really could go either way. I personally, I'm all about the Bengals. I love the Bengals. I love Joe Burrow, and I really want to see them do well. It's a shame that Patrick Mahomes does have the injury because, you want to see both of those guys go against each other at as close to 100% as they can be. But he was practicing today, so that's a good sign. But I've been wanting to bring this up all day. You, for anyone who's not watching, have an Ohio hoodie on right now. So I'm assuming that's a Bengals endorsement.
I got this at the NFL draft in 2021, and my wife was born in Paulding, Ohio. So, and then
yes, it is.
Yeah, my Baker roots also. There's some family in Ohio. It's one of the stops when they got here from Ireland and whatnot. So yes, I don't know. I feel like a fool betting against Mahomes. So the thing that's so weird about this Mahomes and high ankle sprain is that I will, whether it's NBA or NFL, anytime you hear high ankle sprain, the dude's out for 2 damn months. And I don't know how Superman can be Superman like this and it'd be a non-issue. So,
well, it looked terrible. It looked terrible.
And the way he was responding, like that, he was definitely favoring it throughout.
Yeah. What do you got, Ron, for those predictions?
Well, I mean, yeah, I'm with you on multiple fronts. I have a hard time betting against Patrick Mahomes at home in that environment. But and I will say this: going into last year, the week 1 with Joe Burrow, he's answered every single question I ever had about him. To me, he's the number 2 quarterback in the league. Behind Mahomes, but I do think Mahomes is on another level than every other quarterback. But I think the most fun Super Bowl would be, and nothing against Mahomes, would be the Bengals versus Niners because of the skill positions that would be out there. You're watching Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and then Deebo Samuel, Ayuk, McCaffrey, Joe Mixon. It would just be a lot of fun to watch those guys go at it. And anything but Eagles for me this week. I don't care what happens in the other one, but I still hold that grudge against Philly. So, I don't think you can go wrong with either of the matchups. What could be in the Super Bowl because they're probably the 4 best teams, 4 most complete teams from top to bottom. And part of me does want to see the Mahomes go out because I know that narrative is coming out where no team has ever won a Super Bowl with a quarterback making over 10% of their cap hit or whatever that is. So that's interesting. Yeah, that ankle injury, we'll see how he responds. But I mean, I'd take, as of now, I'd take the Bengals and then the Niners and the points.
I think another thing to keep in mind is that if the Bengals do this, they will have beaten the Chiefs 4 times in like 13 months, which is unbelievable. And I mean, it's almost like you can't even like believe it or make it up. So
I just hope Eli Apple gets cooked. Like, man,
I was gonna say
that guy, and it goes back to even when he was drafted to New York and his mom, and she she likes to talk, and I just hope he gets cooked in very Rashad Breeland fashion.
Why I don't know if
Bryant
you know
Eli
laughing?
Apple, Brian.
Why is Brian
Because I know
laughing?
him, and my mom knows his mom.
Okay.
He's from South Jersey.
Are they pals?
My mom, his mom, they know each other from the NFL Mom Association, but I know he's from my area back home in Jersey too. But I just seen him say something to Diggs
Yeah.
about Cancun for 3 and all that stuff too. So I was just like, he kind of had this whole thing last year during the playoffs of him mouthing off to a lot of people. When I know, in fact, his career kind of started off shaky at the beginning.
Yep.
Yeah,
Oh.
indeed.
I didn't know about any of this until the Diggs thing this week, which has been very
No,
entertaining.
he started this last year.
Oh, yeah.
everybody.
Yeah.
With who?
Everyone.
When he's on the
Everyone.
Bengals, or anyone who would listen. Like he's the Pat Beverly of the NFL, but he doubles down on everything. He continues to talk, and yeah.
All right, group. We'll have a Super Bowl matchup when we come back next Wednesday to talk about, and probably, I think, a defensive coordinator by then. And we'll get into that. Anything else from the group?
No. Just go Bengals. Rule the jungle.
All right, guys. We'll talk to you next Wednesday.
Okay.
All right,
Later.
bye.
All right.
Have a good one.